The Constituent Assembly and its working. A Constituent Assembly is a body of representatives tasked with drafting or adopting a constitution for a nation. It plays a critical role in shaping the foundational legal and political framework that governs a country, establishing principles of governance, fundamental rights, and duties of citizens. India's Constituent Assembly was established following the Cabinet Mission Plan of 1946 amid the waning days of British colonial rule. The Cabinet Mission sent by the British government aimed to discuss and plan for the transfer of power to the Indian leadership. The Assembly comprised indirectly elected representatives from British Indian provinces and princely states, reflecting India's diverse demographic and political landscape. The Assembly convened for the first time on December 9, 1946 with Dr. Rajendra Prasad elected as its president. It included prominent leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, B.R. Ambedkar and Maulana Abul Kalam Azad. Over the next 3 years, the Assembly engaged in rigorous debates and discussions examining various facets of constitutional law and governance. This process was instrumental in drafting the Constitution of India, which was eventually adopted on November 26, 1949 and came into effect on January 26, 1950. The Constituent Assembly thus laid the foundation for India's democratic governance and legal framework. Now let's see the formation and composition. The formation of India's Constituent Assembly involved a two-tier election process. First, members were elected indirectly by the provincial assemblies through single transferable votes, while representatives from princely states were nominated by their respective rulers. This structure ensured representation from both British Indian provinces and princely states, accommodating the diverse political entities in pre-independence India. Initially, the Assembly had around 389 members. However, after the partition of India in 1947, which led to the creation of Pakistan, the membership was reduced to about 299 members. The partition necessitated adjustments in the composition to reflect the new geopolitical realities. Key figures played pivotal roles in the Assembly. Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, as the chairman of the drafting committee, was instrumental in drafting the constitution, bringing his expertise in law and social justice to the forefront. His contributions ensured the incorporation of fundamental rights and provisions for social equity. Jawaharlal Nehru, although not the president of the Assembly, the president was Dr. Rajendra Prasad, was a central figure. Jawaharlal Nehru was the central figure, serving as the head of the interim government and providing significant leadership and vision. His speeches and proposals shaped many crucial aspects of the constitutional framework. Now let's see the working of the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly's work unfolded through several key stages. First, the election of office bearers took place, appointing Dr. Rajendra Prasad as the president and H.C. Mukherjee as the vice president. This leadership ensured orderly proceedings and effective management of the Assembly's extensive responsibilities. Next, various committees were formed to handle specific tasks, the most notable being the Drafting Committee chaired by Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. Other committees included the Union Powers Committee, the Union Constitution Committee and the Provincial Constitution Committee, each focusing on distinct aspects of governance and constitutional law. The Assembly then engaged in detailed discussions on various constitutional provisions. These discussions covered a wide range of topics such as individual rights, the federal structure, the role of the judiciary and the distribution of powers between the central and state governments. Members debated and scrutinized each provision to ensure comprehensive and inclusive governance principles. Following these debates, the Assembly considered and amended draft articles. This iterative process involved incorporating feedback, resolving differences, and refining the language and structure of the articles to achieve consensus. The culmination of this extensive process was the finalization and adoption of the Constitution on November 26, 1949. The Assembly's meticulous and inclusive approach ensured that the Constitution reflected the aspirations and needs of a diverse and newly independent India. Moving on to the salient features of the functioning. The functioning of India's Constituent Assembly was marked by its democratic and inclusive nature, characterized by open debates and diverse participation. Members from various backgrounds, including different regions, religions, and social strata, contributed to discussions, ensuring a broad representation of India's pluralistic society. The Assembly's proceedings were transparent, with debates often held publicly, reflecting the democratic ethos of the emerging nation. The Assembly extensively considered various constitutional models to create a robust framework suitable for India. The Government of India Act of 1935 provided a foundational structure, while elements from the British parliamentary system and the American federal system were also incorporated. These models helped shape India's federal structure, parliamentary democracy, and the system of checks and balances. Additionally, the Assembly drew from a rich tapestry of historical documents and philosophical ideas. Ancient texts like the Manusmriti influenced the understanding of justice and governance, while contemporary socialist ideals emphasized equality and social justice. The incorporation of fundamental rights was inspired by the American Bill of Rights, and directive principles of state policy were influenced by Irish constitutional concepts. These diverse influences ensured that the Constitution was not only a legal document but also a reflection of India's historical and philosophical heritage tailored to the needs of a modern democratic state. Moving on to the challenges faced. The Constituent Assembly faced significant challenges, particularly due to the impact of partition and mass migration. The division of British India into India and Pakistan led to widespread violence, displacement, and communal tensions. This upheaval affected the Assembly's deliberations as members grappled with the immediate need to address the rights and security of minorities and displaced populations. Key debates centered around minority rights, as ensuring protection and representation for religious and cultural minorities became paramount. The Assembly had to strike a balance between safeguarding minority interests and promoting national unity. This led to provisions like reserved seats and cultural rights for minorities in the Constitution. Center-state relations also provoked extensive discussions focusing on the federal structure of India. Members debated the distribution of powers between the central and state governments to maintain a balance that could accommodate India's vast diversity. The resulting compromise was a quasi-federal structure giving significant autonomy to states while retaining a strong central authority. The nature of the Indian state was another contentious issue. The Assembly deliberated on whether India should be a secular, socialist, and democratic republic. The debates resulted in a consensus that enshrined India as a secular state, ensuring religious freedom for all while adopting socialist principles to promote social justice and economic equity. These debates and compromises were crucial in shaping the inclusive and democratic framework of the Indian Constitution. Moving on to the significance of the Constituent Assembly. The Constituent Assembly's work has had a profound and lasting impact on Indian democracy. It established the foundations of a democratic governance system that has sustained the world's largest democracy for over 7 decades. By incorporating fundamental rights, the Assembly ensured that individual liberties and freedoms are protected, fostering a culture of democratic participation and accountability. One of the most significant achievements of the Assembly was the creation of a flexible constitution. Recognizing the need for adaptability in a rapidly changing world, the framers included provisions for amendments. This has allowed the Constitution to evolve with India's socio-political and economic transformations. Over time, numerous amendments have been made to address emerging challenges, uphold social justice, and refine governance structures. This flexibility has been crucial in maintaining the relevance and effectiveness of the Constitution. The Assembly's inclusive and deliberative approach set a precedent for democratic processes in India. It demonstrated the importance of debate, consensus building, and representation in decision making. The Constitution's emphasis on justice, equality, and secularism continues to guide India's democratic ethos. The Constituent Assembly, through its meticulous and visionary work, laid the groundwork for a resilient and dynamic democratic state, ensuring that the Constitution remains a living document, responsive to the needs and aspirations of its people. To conclude, the Indian Constitution, a cornerstone of nation's democratic fabric, embodies several key features that have shaped India's governance and society. It enshrines fundamental rights such as equality before the law, freedom of speech and expression, and the right to life and liberty, ensuring the protection of individual liberties against state encroachment. The Constitution also establishes a parliamentary democracy with a federal structure, where power is divided between the central and state governments, ensuring representation and governance at multiple levels. Understanding the work of Constituent Assembly is crucial for a deeper appreciation of the Constitution's principles. The Assembly's deliberations and debates conducted in the historical context of post-colonial India and the challenges of partition laid the foundation for key constitutional provisions. For example, the debates on minority rights and federalism led to compromises that balanced unity with diversity. The Assembly's decision to declare India a secular, socialist and democratic republic reflected a commitment to inclusive governance and social justice. Despite the Constitution's adoptability through amendments, ongoing debates on constitutional amendments highlight the delicate balance between continuity and change. Issues such as judicial review, reservation policies, and federal-state relations continue to be subjects of discussion, emphasizing the evolving nature of constitutional interpretation. Analyzing the Assembly's work in light of contemporary issues underscores the importance of upholding the Constitution's spirit while addressing present challenges. The Assembly's legacy serves as a guide for navigating complex constitutional issues, promoting democratic values, and ensuring the rule of law in a dynamic and diverse society.